Well, this is my retirement. Goodbye, everyone. We're ending it off at episode 8. It's done. It's canned. Right, Wallied?
We don't like each other at all.
Yeah, it turns out we have very different opinions.
Yeah.
I like Zack Snyder. He doesn't. All right, that's our intro. No, we are not retiring. Welcome, everyone, to the Awful Takes podcast. I am one of the hosts, Nabahi.
Hello, I'm the other host, Wallied from Circator Productions.
And we are on episode 8 today. Everything's looking good.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I say that all the time because I am. But yeah, here we are, episode 8. We got some things to talk about. I need to stop saying I've been listening to a lot of our older episodes, and you know, it is hard to listen to yourself, and you want to change things and how you portray yourself.
Of course.
I ramble on and make no sense sometimes. And there's another but I'm trying to work on it. I'm trying to fix these things, you know, just fine tune everything and how I want to talk in a podcast format. So here we are.
Yeah. So what do we got?
All right. I went on a little movie spree this weekend. I started watching a lot of movies, and it's so weird now that I say it. I just notice it so much more. But I went on a watching spree. All right, I need to stop.
All right.
And I came across a movie that had been not really hyped up, but I'd heard a lot about it at the time of its release. I don't want to get it too in-depth with review or anything like that, but it was a movie that Wallied had been mentioning for a while.
Smacks.
This is Puss in Boots, The Last Wish.
Oh my god, yay! Finally watched it.
It's crazy because I had watched it, and 2 days later, in movie news, they said that Shrek 5 is announced, and it's coming out next year.
Wow.
Or 2026.
Yeah.
So it was kind of perfect timing. I don't know how that lined up so perfectly, but Puss in Boots: The Last Wish was really, really good. Portrayed a lot of things that I didn't think it'd go into, and took a known character that people love and really evolved him and made him a bit more vulnerable than he's ever been. And they didn't have to do that for, I guess, what people would just call like a kid's movie. And the villains and everything were super good in it. Jokes were funny. The animation was great. I think one of the scariest villains I've ever seen in a movie.
I know, right? It's crazy.
So intimidating, so cool. And I really liked it. But yeah, 2 days later, they announced Shrek 5 for 2026.
So it's actually official? Like it's actually going to finally happen?
Yeah. Eddie Murphy's coming back. Michael Myers is coming back too. Cameron Diaz. Yeah. And it's coming in 2026. How do you feel about that?
It's crazy. I've been hearing about Shrek 5 for such a long while, especially because I am a massive Shrek fan. I love those first 2 Shrek films, and even Forever After is pretty good and a nice little send-off, I guess, to like Shrek, like just the Shrek franchise, you know?
Yeah.
I guess what I am kind of curious with Shrek 5 is how, because it's been so long since the last Shrek film, I'm kind of curious to see where they'll take the Shrek direction with, you know? Yeah. I wonder if they'll go kind of more in like a straightforward fairy tale direction, or kind of do something similar to like what Puss in Boots: The Last Wish did.
Yeah.
Of just kind of like doing an even more crazy subversion of like those fairy tale tropes, you know?
Yeah.
So it's got me kind of curious to see what's going to happen, especially with the cast coming back and everything, you know?
I haven't heard about the team behind it, but after watching Puss in Boots, I really hope they bring some of those guys over.
I really do hope so.
Whether it's writing, directing, whoever made that movie really understood how to make things fresh, how to put a new spin on things, you know, because Shrek's a well-known name. Same with Puss in Boots. It's like you can make something super bottom of the barrel and people are going to go see it. It's going to sell. you know.
Yeah.
But they had a passion behind what they were telling, and they went for it, you know, and it was really cool.
But I guess one thing that does have me a bit concerned though with them doing a Shrek 5 is I am worried that it might go in kind of that same direction that Kung Fu Panda 4 recently
Ooh.
did, where it basically waited a long time to make another one, and it just kind of felt like a parody of like what, you know, Kung Fu Panda was, you know.
Yeah.
It kind of like became the villain that like it was trying not to be. And that's kind of the one thing, even though I am kind of looking forward to it and I've been kind of curious about a Shrek 5 for a long time, it does have me a bit concerned just kind of seeing with that recent Kung Fu Panda 4, like Shrek 5 could possibly get that same treatment, you know, if not done right or not given like the best direction, you know?
Yeah. I'm excited for it. I feel like Shrek has kind of entered a new phase of pop culture the last couple of years. So I really see this movie kind of being a big deal.
Yeah, of course.
Over the past couple of years, like it's just, I feel like Shrek is just, it was there when those first movies were coming out. They were popular. They had big returns on box office, but it's just like now, like there's the Shrek memes. There's last year I went to a Shrek rave, and it's
nice.
so crazy. Like they started in like Los Angeles, and before you know it, every city was like having one.
Yeah.
And I went there, and everyone was in a costume of a Shrek character.
Really?
Like people were dressed as like the Three Blind Mice, Lord Farquaad, and it was just like so creative, and like I was like, wow, Shrek has had like this huge impact and like spike in popularity. And I feel like Shrek did innovation really well in the first two films of like, you had your normal hero. Shrek was supposed to be like the villain, the ogre, you know.
The anti-hero.
Yeah. And it's like, I hope they reignite their, you know, lens that they first saw when they made those first few films, you know, like kind of treat it as like, okay, you have modern animation today. What are some new things that you could kind of have a new perspective on? Which is what I feel like Puss in the Boots: The Last Wish did, you know? So I really hope they continue it. I feel like this movie is going to be insanely big.
Yeah.
I feel like once the trailer comes out, people are going to start losing it. And
of course.
I feel like it might be one of the biggest films of the year in 2026. Like, especially with just everything in pop culture that I see with Shrek, you know.
Yeah.
I just hope they're doing it for the right reason, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. I would at least hope so, but I don't know. With DreamWorks, they can be very just hit or miss. They have this very inconsistent quality to them where they can go from making really great sequels and really great films to like making just like a slew of really awful, mediocre movies. So, well, I do kind of have my concerns again. Like hopefully it doesn't get this Kung Fu Panda 4 treatment or like, again, just that inconsistent quality that DreamWorks usually pumps out. I still do have some faith in Shrek 5, especially with the cast returning, and with it coming out in a couple years, we'll see definitely what comes of it,
It was really cool to watch the movie, and at the end they tease Shrek, like he's sailing to far, far away, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then 2 days later, it was like, yep, it's happening. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Yeah, I waited so long to see it, but it really paid off. Really recommend watching it.
Hell yeah, man. I'm super happy you finally did.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about it one day more in depth. That's really it for movie news, so I guess we'll move on to our main discussion. I gave Wallied the recommendation of a movie that I felt went under the radar at the time. I believe it came out around some other projects that got a little more light than this movie did. And I felt like this one goes in places that can be seen as like traditional kind of storytelling, but I feel like it shouldn't work, but it does. The movie is called Searching, and it came out in 2018. And the director, his name is Anish Shiganti, probably Shiganti. And I don't know, this movie caught me by surprise. My sister wanted me to go see it with her. I always mention that, but she is kind of the one who keeps an eye on these kind of movies that go under the radar. And I went to go see it, and I got very invested in this story, and I felt like I shouldn't have. We'll get into this discussion a little bit after the review, but the lens this movie is portrayed in is it's all put together cohesively through the perspective of a computer. So the whole time you are watching the movie, you see things through this computer. It's almost like you're just like watching a big screen, you know?
Yeah.
So like in the movie, they do like FaceTime calls over, their Mac. They do searches on things, and it's all done on this computer. And I really felt like I wasn't told that beforehand, so I was kind of surprised when it started up, and instantly you're just like on this computer, and I was just like, whoa, this is weird. And after like 5 or 10 minutes, I was like, wow, I'm actually getting used to like watching this. Like it wasn't like jarring for me in any way, which I felt like normally something like that would be.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so under the veil, you have kind of, I guess, what would be just like a traditional kind of thriller crime movie. You have a man played by John Chu, who is fantastic in the film. I really feel like John Chu is an underrated actor. I don't really hear people bring up his name a lot, but sometimes he does very, very, very good, convincing work, and I feel like he never gets his praise. And John Chu in the movie has a daughter, and what happens is she ends up going missing. It's treated much at like face value. The father goes to the extent of picking up clues, trying to find out where she's gone. Obviously, he gets the police involved, and they're doing their thing, but he's also trying to figure out, okay, what's going on. He has a perspective on his daughter that I'm assuming most parents do, of everything's fine, like I don't know where this is coming from, and through the unveiling of the film, we start to find out that his daughter isn't exactly as she portrayed herself to be. She was hiding a lot of things from her dad, which is a big revelation to him, but I also felt like that was true. Like I feel like kids do that type of thing. I feel like teenagers and things, they don't share a lot with their parents of
course,
what they go through. Through the course of the film, it's just like these revelations of clues and things. Okay, at one point, who's the suspect? It can be the dad, it can be the uncle, and it's just all told through like this revelation of clues on this computer, and it really, really works. And they have some, very smartly written bits in the movie that I didn't think the storyteller would go for. Like, you have kids who are like, I don't know who she is. I'm not.
Yeah.
The dad will be like, I found messages on, like you were friends with my daughter, right? And they were like, actually, not really. She was kind of quiet. We didn't really like talk to her. Or one girl's like, oh, we just invited her to study because I'm trying to get into this college.
Yeah, more like using her almost.
Yeah, and it's just like, wow, this story didn't need to do that, but I feel like those are real things that actually happen. Overall, it was just very, very gripping. I guess we won't get into spoilers yet, but face value, that is what the story is about. You have some other character motivations that they get into that are done very well. Some could say that they copy some other movies. Like in the beginning, there's kind of almost like a montage of what happened to his wife. And I guess, could be reminiscent of like the movie Up. They show, she passed away. They do some things that are very smart. Like he logs into like her account, and it's like it's been 600 something days since this account was last used. And it's just like in a quick little like blip, it's just like that tells a lot. That tells like, he hasn't really processed this thing yet. He's still, very touchy about mentioning his wife, to the daughter, her mom and stuff. And they don't need to do this. Like the whole time I'm watching this, I'm like, this director didn't need to add these elements in, yet he put it in there, and it really helped make it more convincing. Obviously, the acting's top notch. I was just overall really surprised with this film. So I guess, Wallied, what was your opinion going into it?
Honestly, I had heard a lot about it in high school, like 5 or 6 years ago. I remember seeing some like kind of hype around the film about like, oh, you got to see this movie from like a couple film YouTubers I watched, and I was like, oh, I'll get to it at some point. It didn't seem that interesting at first, and especially like I was a bit skeptical going into it because I was like, okay, how are they gonna kind of use this gimmick, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I wasn't ready for this movie. This film really surprised me a lot, and I really loved it. I was super invested like the entire time. I never once got bored with it, you know, and even when it does slow down, you're still just super invested the entire time. I love that the film just portrays this perspective through the dad, through his desktop, and then going to like his daughter's desktop, and you see him opening all these tabs, going through all of like the social medias and her most visited websites and things like that. For me, I think this might be the best portrayal of the internet I think I've seen in a movie. Honestly, aside from 8th Grade, I've never seen a film portray the internet as well as this film has, you know? It felt like just super accurate to like how you call people on FaceTime, how you message people. It really just surprised me in that sense. And I love that the film uses this gimmick to like its fullest potential to tell this just really compelling character like drama mystery thriller. Super, super well. It's super well paced. I love the editing of the film, and I love how it like transitioned where like you'd get like the little like swinging colors, you know, as like the transitions. It was such an awesome way to like transition from different scenes throughout. And I loved how like you'd get different ways of how they'd film it, either through like with the FaceTime camera or like through like the FaceTime on the desktop, on the Mac. It was so cool. I really, really loved it a lot. And I loved, you mentioned like the first 10, 20 minutes. It communicates everything super well in those first 10 to 20 minutes through like the videos, through like the articles and all that. It was really awesome. Like I was very surprised with how communication was being explained, and it's never like, it doesn't feel muddled or anything. It feels very clear.
Yeah. And I feel like in today's day and age, like obviously technology is just so prevalent in everything we do. Yet I feel like some movies and things like they portray it and you know, they do it to an extent. But I feel like this one really kind of helps show like where we are with technology, you know, the things that can be done with it, the whether it's good, whether it's bad, you know, with all the advancements we've made in technology and how much we are kind of being synonymous with it. And this movie does that, and it shows, you know, a timestamp in, you know, our human evolution to like where we are with technology. And it's not like the main focus though. Like it's not showing like obviously like the ins and outs of technology. It does it through like its storytelling, you know, like the revelation of like, you know, when she goes missing, like it shows like him calling, it shows like all this stuff, like where was her last location, who did she meet, you know, the messages people send each other, the daughter recording lives that like no one watches, and shows her like talking about herself and everything. And that's where we are. Like kids and teenagers, they do this stuff, you know. And some people might see that as like a downside, you know, of where we are right now, but I'm glad this movie did that, and I'm glad that this movie showed it.
And a very just incredible execution, just on all fronts.
And unlike some other movies, this movie, it's just like a small little additive, but they pay for the licenses. You see Apple, you see YouTube. Sometimes you'll watch movie. Like one of the funniest ones I've seen is like in Amazing Spider-Man 2 or Amazing Spider-Man. He goes to like search. And he uses Bing, you know.
Oh, that was hilarious.
Who uses Bing, you know? So
Mark Webb
like,
does.
I appreciate this movie to where it's like they get all these licenses and stuff because it's accurate, you know. Like people use these things. It's not them trying to sell you on a product, or it doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like product placement because it's going for a more realistic portrayal of like him trying to investigate through the internet, through her social media and all that. So it fits perfectly for the story.
Yeah. And I've heard that, this movie did kind of take a while to edit and put together.
I mean, I could imagine. Yeah.
I think the whole production on this movie was like close to like a year and a half, And I wonder if at one point they were writing the story and they were just like, I wonder if they started out with this perspective or if they changed to it,
Yeah.
I'm very curious. I actually want to look up some.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see.
Stuff, you know.
One of my favorite things about the film too, you were mentioning earlier about like how the girl's friends, like that she gets on Facebook, like how they mentioned they don't even really know her that well, but then like once they find her car in the river, and all of a sudden like all those people that didn't know her or like, oh, I don't know who that is, they start just switching up and they're like, oh, actually she was such a great friend of mine. And it gives into really great perspective of how people can kind of tend to turn, for like the attention almost,
People do that a lot now. They take tragedies and larger than life events,
and like they just exploit it
for themselves. They find a way to add themselves in the angle. Again, the movie did not need to do that. They didn't show that, but they showed a commentary on like how people are now. People take these tragedies, they take these things. They may have a small connection or whatever, and then they use it for themselves. They use it as like, oh, I'm so sad, this and this.
And you even see it, like she gains like 100,000 views just from that video, of her basically pretending that she knew this person when she really didn't.
Yeah. I'm glad they took the time to show that. And it is very effective, very, very smartly done. In the movie, so John Chu's character gets the help of a detective, who at first seems pretty, legit and everything, and she's obviously trying to help find this daughter and everything. And through the course of the movie, they're dropping hints and things, and spoilers. Recommend watching the movie. The detective turns out to be the one who's covering up this whole thing.
Yeah, and the way they unravel it too, and like all the red herrings throughout are just so well done. And it was like it kept you just second guessing a lot of the time. And that's like one of my favorite things about this film is like you think it's gonna go one way, and you're like, oh wait, it can't be this, right? And it's like it just changes, and it's like, oh, actually, it's this now. But it never blue balls you, and it's very satisfying and rewarding a lot of the time, and especially when it does unravel the detective and her covering up like the almost somewhat murder. It's crazy. It's just through like a stock photo he finds on like the funeral website.
It's like a detective revelation moment. And tying the detective villain, they do a good job of drawing parallels of they're both parents. They both care about their kids. They'll do what they need to do to protect them. Make sure they're okay. They go to
great lengths. Yeah.
And I really appreciate the movie for doing that, because you see both sides. You see, a parent who will do anything to save their kid and everything. And then you see the other side, a parent who loves their child just as much, yet they need a cover for things that happen that aren't good, So what happens in the movie is there was a friend that the young girl had, and he was like stalking her almost,
Pretty much, yeah.
That's another, and again, another thing of our online world, catfishing, you know. So he was in her lives and everything, her live streams, and he would comment this and this, and at one point they were gonna meet up because she was like giving him money that was her dad's and everything, and what happens is like an accident or on purpose was just like he pushes her, like, or they get into like an entanglement, confrontation, and
while they're like super high on weed,
and she ends up falling off of this cliff ravine, and the detective finds out and is trying everything to cover this up and to make sure that her son is safe.
And it's crazy too, because it was like she was just volunteering for it. She wasn't even on the case to begin with.
Yeah. And it takes this dad and the love of his kid to expose everything that's going on, and we see the challenges he goes through, because again, at one point the internet does what it does, and you see this in a lot of real life crime cases, is the people closest, like the internet can have an opinion and they'll turn on them and be like, well, we think it's the dad, it's this and this.
He made the big mistake of going to Reddit.
Yeah. And it shows that stuff. And at one point you assume it's, they try to corner this on the dad. Then we find out stuff about the uncle messaging her. And,
oh my God.
And again, it shows like the side of the tech world we live in, when you don't have the full picture yet,
the full context.
You
exactly.
think you do, like the uncle was sending her messages and things that at face value, it's like, wait, what is going on? And then the revelation is like, he was basically just selling her weed. Yeah. And there was nothing malicious going on. And through the story, they show how technology portrays these things. Very, very smartly done. I guess before we get to the climax, was there anything else like through the course of the movie that surprised you? Or
I mean, I thought the guy who played the brother was really incredible. He really was like the more comedic relief of the film, and I felt like the film really did need that, especially because of how heavy everything was. And he was really great in the film. I thought he gave like also like a really good performance too, and especially with like that whole unraveling, I was a little like just like, no, this can't be it, right? Like, no way, like there's no way, because he just, on the surface, he may just, he seems like just such a cool person, and then once they revealed, it was like, okay, it's not as bad, but it's still like, you could understand why that dad is like super frustrated and upset about that, just again, really incredible ways of how like they would show like the different perspectives, either through like him recording his brother, or like through the desktop, or like through like the FaceTime calls. It was super creative, and I really loved that like aspect of the story, where it didn't feel like a gimmick, and it was actually adding a lot to like the investigation that was going on, and a lot of like just the dad and him trying to like figure out and try to solve like the pieces of the puzzle.
One of the biggest revelations in the movie was that his daughter, there was a chance that she could be alive. And at no point did that ever occur to me. And that was like such a big revelation, to where I was like, wait, what? And it's done so good. And they go back to the ravine, and one of the points in the movie, they're like, well, it rained over the past couple of days, so there is a chance she could still be alive, and at the end you find out she is alive, and they rescue her, and so engaged in that climax. Like, I was just like, oh my God, like I was on the edge of my seat. I was
exactly
just like, wow.
Such a great way to just like send off the film and everything too.
And then the detective is exposed. They find out everything. It's very sad almost. It's just like, dang, because she was like a good, worker.
Mother.
Good mother. She did her job and everything. But in this one moment, she had to make a choice of, what
like a sacrifice almost,
Yeah. And again, like, film didn't need to do that. Like, I just applauded the director so much for taking these moments to...
I'm very happy he took these risks too also.
I guess any downsides I really have, I mean, like I said, it can be a little jarring at first when you're watching. I could see people not gelling with it. They might be like, this is weird, but I just encourage people to stick with it. Also, some of the revelations and stuff, can be a little typical movie, you know, but I really don't think it downgrades the movie in any way. I don't think it really is too big of a negative for me. I feel like the swings it does, and the the ambition behind it succeeds, and it does it really well. Did you have any things you didn't like with the movie, maybe could have been a little better.
Yeah, I would say the one thing I kind of was a little iffy on was just some of the music choices. I
Yeah.
thought some were really good, especially like in the middle and like the end of the film, especially like in the church scene. I really loved like the music in that, but some of the music was just kind of there. It was just kind of hit or miss for me, and
Yeah.
I think it could have been a lot better. I think it could have been just more hard hitting,
Yeah.
especially. That's kind of it, and then just I guess kind of little minor nitpick things I guess
Yeah.
that aren't even really worth mentioning, but that's kind of really it. Honestly.
I do like the sound mixing in this movie.
Yes,
They
yeah,
use,
the
like,
sound
a lot
design is
of
incredible.
the things on the computer as very integral. It just makes it feel more authentic,
Yeah, it genuinely feels like you're web searching with the character.
Yeah.
Almost,
And it's like there can be real anxiety for some people, like behind calling someone and they don't answer.
I know it kind of terrified me
Yeah.
for sure.
And they use the sound of that to kind of like
Especially at
foreboding.
night.
Yeah.
Like it's so like I don't know why. There's something so eerie about like searching through like, especially like when he's searching through like the stock photos. I don't know why that like just gave me this really eerie, terrifying feeling.
Yeah.
Almost.
That's just something that I was like, wow, it's effective,
Very much so.
And they weren't using some off-brand FaceTime service or something.
Yeah, they were using.
Again, that's just that's a big plus for me. They took the time to get the licenses for everything, and it works.
Yeah, it ended up working out in the end.
Yeah. Again, so many strong points of the movie: the directing, the writing, the acting. But most of all, just the point of view it chooses to tell this story. It really shows, where we are with technology. Yes, it is 6 years old. Nowadays, it might be a little different, but
It's very accurate to that time, though.
yeah, it's, I feel like as far as timestamp movies, this was made at the right time.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's going to be remembered. It really set the stage really well. Well, not set the stage. There was a couple movies before this that we'll probably end up getting into. One of the ones is Unfriended. It's kind of a similar thing. They did the whole computer thing before this movie, but I feel like obviously it was not as good. They have how do you do a computer screen yet you still have this stupid jump scare sound effect? I'm just like, really? I'm like, aren't I on a computer?
My favorite.
Yeah. But yeah, this movie's very underrated. Again, I think at the time what happened is it came out around some other big movies that almost eclipsed it pretty much.
Especially with you mentioning Unfriended, also I feel like that kind of maybe also overshadowed it too, as just maybe like, oh, another one of these types of movies.
Yeah, and it may have put a sour taste in people's mouths, but I can't recommend this movie enough. I feel like most people will at least get something out of it. If you're into thrillers or something, it does that very well. If you're looking for, a movie that has some good social commentary on where we are in this day and age with technology, it has that really, really well. If you like good performances in movies,
John Chu kills it.
He kills it. Really wish he got more recognition. This director has moved on to 2 other projects after this that I need to check out.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're done in the same vein as this.
So I have seen Run. I saw it during COVID when it came out, and it's decent. It's not really anything like Searching. I would say it's more standard with its like just kind of horror direction. But I do think Sarah Paulson's performance in that film is really fantastic. But
Nice.
Yeah, I would just say overall it's decent. It's not as strong as Searching.
And then he has a new one out. I believe it's called Missing on Netflix. I don't know if it's
apparently it's like a follow-up to Searching, but it's like told through like a different character pretty much.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna have to check these out. This director's is using the indie side of things to its advantage.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine the filmmaking that went behind this to know that you're going to do things on a computer screen.
Yeah.
And you have to edit everything together and make it effective. Like that's such a big challenge. I couldn't even imagine the stress that went behind this. I know I would be in just such a panic of like, how do I make this work?
Yeah, exactly.
But he pulls it off, and yeah, it's one of my favorite movies of 2018. Really recommend it. I guess not a little jab at A24, but I wish A24 would do stuff like this,
I'm surprised they haven't done it yet.
Yeah, like I wish they would kind of take the risks and things of conventional storytelling and perspectives and put a spin on it, What are some things that we can use in today's day and age that people don't really think of?
Yeah.
But overall, I'm going to give this movie a solid 8 out of 10. Love it for what it did. I'm maybe leaning closer to a little higher 8, maybe like closer to a 9, but I would just say solid 8 out of 10. You really can't go wrong watching this movie. So I definitely give it a recommendation. Please check this movie out.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm on the same boat with you. High 8 out of 10, honestly. I honestly just want to rewatch it again after just talking about it because this film just surprised me so much. I really didn't think I was going to enjoy it. I thought it was going to be just okay, but I was just so blown away by it, Performances, again, just fantastic. I love how it uses the internet and the desktop to its fullest potential to tell this just really great father-daughter story. Yeah, just one thing, just Scary Maze. Scary Maze kind of ruined it a bit, but yeah, very good though at the beginning, but very good though. I really loved it. I would strongly recommend it, if you haven't seen it. It was very good. I really loved it a lot. So yeah, thanks for recommending it.
Yeah, of course. That's where I am. So when we first made these recommendations, we did, I just put a list together of 5 movies that I ended up kind of sticking with, except for one, which I'm saving.
For Halloween.
Yeah. I felt like these all brought a different kind of flavor of things I like in movies. Kind of can encapsulate what I love and some are modern movies, some are older movies, but it's the love of everything that I love and why I keep going back to movies and why I keep wanting to be surprised is movies like this, movies where I go in and opinions and everything are just flipped on its head, and it's like, wow, this guy really opened up a gateway of how to
I didn't even know you could make movies like this, especially this compelling too.
I really didn't think it would be possible, yet it works. So please check out Searching 2018. I'm gonna have to check out Anisha's other movies. I guess this is a director that I want to keep my eye on. I need to check out both of his other movies. So yeah, I guess what comes into context with this movie is the perspective it's told in. So I kind of asked the question of films that are told with a different perspective, some that are done right and some that are done wrong that come to mind. I guess for me, a film that, has that perspective that, could be done. I think it was done right. And I think it was pretty effective. It's kind of funny because it's some of the other recommendations like Locke could be kind of considered the same.
Yeah.
Actually, let me pull out my list. Wallied, I'll let you go first, actually.
Okay. There was a couple that came to mind for me for films that with limited perspectives done right. So the one that I feel like is the perfect example with this is a film called Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Nice. From
Michel Gondry and Charlie Kaufman, my favorite screenwriter. And yeah, I don't even know how to talk about this movie without
really though
trying to get into why that perspective works, but I'll try my best. So maybe minor spoilers, but yeah, basically the film is told through the perspective of Joel Barish, played by Jim Carrey, where he has just gone through a really awful breakup and he finds out that there's a service where you can clear your mind for bad memories that you don't want. And the whole film is told through Joel's first perspective. It's all told through these memories and fragments that he's had. So you get a window into Joel's life and his relationship with the girl in the film. And it's super well done. And it's portrayed in such a way where it keeps you on the edge of your seat and you're wondering what's going to happen. How did we get to this in the first place, And yeah, it's just one of my all-time favorite movies. And I the way it portrays like the human brain and how memories are encapsulated through this breakup and love and everything is super just well done and just super well executed.
Nice. I really like that movie.
Yeah.
One that came to mind for me was obviously one that I think kind of went under the radar, but it was pretty successful. I just like the perspective. There's like a switch that happens. Spoilers. David Fincher made a movie called Gone Girl. That is not, it's not anything, 10 out of 10 or anything. It has its faults and everything, but basically it's like another kind of mystery crime movie. And what you have is in the first half, the perspective told from, the husband. His wife goes missing and everything, and shows his side of things. And it delves into a lot of, I guess, what Searching does. You might see some parallels. Maybe I kind of like crime movies, but that's fine.
Yeah.
So maybe I have a little, bias towards this movie, but it shows that whole side of things. What goes into, someone close to you goes missing, and what are the ramifications of that. But then halfway through the movie, it switches perspective, and now you're seeing the girl side of things, of everything that had happened, and man, is that a really big switch of perspective. And it is so effective. I'll try to avoid spoilers.
Okay.
There is a lot more going on than what it seems. And wow, there are so many left and right turns in that second half to where it makes you enjoy that first half a lot. And by the end of the climax, the two sides come to a head. And whether or not you like it or not, it's pretty effective. And yeah, I really feel like it's an underrated David Fincher film that most people kind of overlook.
Okay.
So I recommend checking that one out.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah,
so.
Really cool. I guess what are some that you thought maybe didn't really do it right? Kind of.
So I actually did surprisingly have one. So it was a film in 2017 called Downsizing, directed by Alexander Payne. And the film is basically about this guy played by Matt Damon, where the concept's great, and they create this like small like world pretty much where you can become like a super tiny person pretty much. And in the film, his friends start doing it, and him and his wife decide to go along with that, to be like small people in this like small luxurious utopia as it's advertised. And his wife decides not to do it, so he ends up becoming a small person permanently because there's no way you can become a bigger person after that. And basically the whole film is him in this like small world, and once he gets to like the small world, it becomes like just super boring and really uninteresting, and it really doesn't take advantage at all of like the concept that it was going for, because most of the film is just, it's kind of just standard, and they don't really show the small luxurious world in any way. And like the only difference you could tell from it is just they have like big props or whatever. That's kind of it. And the film decides to switch it up by kind of going in a more political direction, where it decides to kind of touch on like the low class, which again could be interesting, but the way the film executes it, it just comes out of left field, and it's just super rushed. And yeah, just very boring, very uninteresting, and just not at all, just very wasted potential, which makes me very sad because I think the concept's super awesome. But yeah, just not, writing isn't great, the acting isn't the best. I think if you got anybody else aside from Matt Damon, I think it could have been a lot better. But yeah, just a very boring movie, unfortunately.
I'm a big fan of video games. Form of media is something that I think films and TV and everything else can't really replicate. One of my favorite games of all time is one called BioShock, and it really uses the first-person perspective to its advantage, and how you can unveil information and expose your main character to the world around them. You're literally sitting behind their eyes, and you're experiencing this crazy world, and the storytelling that's done visually is so good. You know, you have such a big reveals in that game. So when I was younger, I anticipated so much when a movie would do something with first person perspective, and a movie ended up coming out called Hardcore Henry, and it was labeled as like the first person movie.
That's not true.
In its entirety, you know. And obviously I was interested. I never ended up seeing it when it came out to theaters, but one day I believe it was on one of the streaming services, and I was like, yeah, why not? I'll just put it on and just see what happens. And it has that whole different perspective of, you know, first person storytelling, and it does not work at all. It used nothing from that perspective to its advantage. There's no visual storytelling going on. It's just a bunch of stupid action scenes, and it really feels like a 12-year-old wrote this movie. Over the top, stupid characters that make no sense. And it thinks that it was this grand piece of media, and it did this first person storytelling, and, you know, it's such an ambitious, you know, concept to do something like that. And I'm like, yeah, it is, but you don't realize the point behind it. You know, you can take this perspective and storytelling and you can do so much with it. A lot like Searching did. Like, it uses the computer's perspective storytelling to its advantage. And what are things we can achieve with this that you can't achieve in traditional filmmaking, you know? And with Hardcore Henry, I was like, you have this side, you have this, you know, thing that no other film has. You know, you can go in a different way to unveil character's story, and it does nothing with it. It's just a glorified action movie, and you see all these stunts and everything, which, okay, applaud to the stunt team, it's cool and everything, but even then it's not even done really super well. And you do nothing with it, you know. Yet you want to act like, we broke ground here, guys, we did something super crazy, we're super ambitious, so watch our movie, you know. Super forgettable and just all around just really awful movie.
Yeah, I honestly forgot that was a movie until you mentioned it right now. So yeah, thanks for reminding me that's a movie that exists.
Yeah. But those are just the ones that came to mind. Again, I feel like Searching does it really well. It uses it to its advantage. I guess an interesting question that I kind of proposed to Wallied, given some time to think about it. Do you feel like anytime there's big innovation in media and things, does it require a sacrifice of story? Because I feel like that's what people say a lot. One point I'm going to bring up is Linklater's Boyhood. It tells a story across 14 or 18 years or something.
12 years.
12 years. So at times, this movie was in production for a while. They would meet, they would film stuff, and then they'd break off, come back years later, film more of it, and you can appreciate, you know, the innovation. But one of the big critiques at the time is like, there's no real story to this movie, you know? Some can say it's a coming of age movie because you see a boy grow up, but when you watch these scenes and stuff and how they put them together, I don't really feel like there's a narrative or any real strong sense of character, you know? At least that's in my opinion. I know some people really appreciate this movie, but it really just came off to me as almost like a gimmick, you know?
Yeah.
Do you feel that way? Does innovation, is there a lack of, are the two synonymous? Like,
I don't know. I feel like
innovation in movie and lack of story and character, is that just something that can't be fixed?
I feel like it obviously depends on like what you're going for. I guess when I think of like the innovation requiring sacrifice or story, I would say it's more like with like the new technology, like say when they did that Final Fantasy movie and they were talking about how that was going to be like the future of movies, where it was going to have this like almost like cutscene video game type of animation, but obviously it didn't really work out or pan out that well. Where I kind of stand in it, I'm like half and half on it.
Yeah.
Where I feel like it's done really well with like, I feel like the technology has gotten so much better where like you can film on like your phone now, or you can use like visual effects or CGI, in like the best ways possible, where it's like you can't even notice it a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And I get so surprised when I'm like, wait, they use VFX for this,
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't even guess, like for some of the films like Parasite, like where you would think there would be no VFX, but they find a way to use it in a way where you can't even notice it. And I think that's like, for me, like the best type of innovation,
Yeah.
where it's like you can't even really notice it a lot of the time, I feel like for me, like the innovation that I feel like could be distracting or even gimmicky is like how maybe George Lucas was using like a lot of that technology for like the special editions for the original trilogy, or when he eventually got to make like the prequels, where he was just using a lot of like blue screen and was just kind of trying to show off more of the technology rather than tell more of like an interesting, compelling story. That's where I feel like I'll draw the line when it comes to that, where it's more of like a tech demo, rather than like a movie or using the technology to like the full potential like searching does.
Yeah. I don't know. Because I guess in the case of George Lucas, it's like he had these ideas in his head, but he had to wait for the technology to kind of catch up to portray this, I never really felt like when the prequels were coming out that it felt gimmicky. So I guess I want to ask that question is what do you think classifies as like a gimmick compared to, where's that line drawn, and how do we avoid crossing over it,
I feel like when it comes across as gimmicky is where I feel like they're showing it off in like the advertisements for the film, or like that's all they talk about, like behind the scenes, like when you see like the interviews of like where the director or like the actors are talking about the movie. I feel like that can sometimes kind of come off as a gimmick. Like an example would be like for 1917, where like all the advertisements you would see for the movie was that, or the interviews the director would give would be like, oh, it's this one take war film, there's nothing else like it, and it's like, well, there's not really anything else to it aside from the one take gimmick, Had you taken out the one take gimmick, you wouldn't really have anything of substance there, So I feel like the way to kind of draw that line is is it benefiting the film in any way, Does it have purpose to the story, And even if it doesn't maybe have purpose to the story, does it look well? Does it fit the type of story that you're trying to tell?
Yeah. Another franchise that can come into mind is Avatar. Like, people praise that movie for its visuals and everything, but one of the big critiques of the film is, it's
Space Pocahontas.
It's a story we've heard and seen multiple times, and
I feel like if that movie had better written characters and wasn't like the longest thing ever, I feel like if it was as strong as the visuals and action, I think those films would be a lot better in my opinion, But I feel like the characters and just kind of like the story overall is just kind of secondary and it's just kind of more forgettable to me, Where I feel like as the visuals are super memorable and you got that on that end, but it's just, I feel like the characters and the story and the writing, I think could be a lot better in my opinion.
Yeah. It's so interesting where we are in movies and where we are right now. I see innovation, but I don't see it as much as I would really like to, I feel like we're kind of taking a step back a little bit on what we like and how we want to tell our stories. I feel like people are looking back to older films and kind of maybe trying to replicate things rather than like Searching did, push it forward, take a step and go for it, So these questions that come up is just like, I'm shocked that we don't see a lot more of this, Why is it Searching was there 6 years ago, and was the reception not good enough to where filmmakers and things are like, is this even worth it? Is it even worth it to try to break ground and go for something that's risky, or I can do something a bit more conventional? I
feel like just honestly, the director was just passionate about the idea. It didn't feel like it was like more of a cash grab, like say like an Unfriended does,
Yeah.
where it's just trying to appeal to like, the internet and that kind of crowd.
Yeah.
I feel like this film isn't really trying to appeal to that crowd, but is instead just trying to tell a story with it,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. You see some of the bigger names getting more of the praise than some of the other names, and it can be a little disheartening.
Of course.
But yeah, it's very interesting. I hope we see more innovation in terms of movies,
There definitely
out.
will be.
And I want to see something similar to this that really is
just as strong
stepping point for everyone, to show other filmmakers or aspiring filmmakers that something like this is possible, like I did the hard part of making it work. Take it, do something else with it, move forward with it, spin it on its head. Or if you have a new way of telling a story, great, let's do it. Let's go for it, Yeah, I just want to see maybe a little more innovation. I want to see those payoffs. I want to go into a movie and be surprised. I want to go in and think that something shouldn't be working, and then I'm proven wrong and it is working. I want to see that, and I want to feel it, and I want to tell people about those movies, and I want, to see their reaction on stuff, But yeah, I guess that's where we are. I mean, who knows what the future holds? There could be a movie in the works right now that I don't know about that is going to come along and surprise me, I guess. But yeah, I guess that's where we're at with searching overall. Cool. Those are the questions that came to mind. That was my recommendation. So we're going to move on to our next recommendation from Wallied.
Yeah, so I was deciding on a handful of movies, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to recommend next, but I think I found the one. I realized we haven't talked about a Ghibli movie yet.
Oh, cool.
And honestly, I've been obsessed with this movie for kind of a while, and I feel like this one isn't as loved as much as some of Miyazaki's other films, and I really just want to shower this film with even more love. So I'm going to go with Ponyo, 2008 film. Probably even say it's in my top 5 Miyazaki films, maybe top 3. But I just really love this film so much. I think it is like just super cute, super wonderful. It's definitely like the most childish and lighthearted of Miyazaki's films, but I feel like there's just so much substance and just so much to just discuss with this film that I'm like, I think this would be like a perfect film to talk about.
Great. I have not seen this film. It's going to be really cool to kind of sit down and watch it.
Perfect.
I feel like Miyazaki does have those bigger movies that people know, and then he's got some of the smaller ones like Ponyo, or I would even throw The Wind Rises in there.
Yeah.
Just films that kind of are eclipsed by his bigger films,
Mm-hmm.
And especially in terms of Ghibli, like there are just the beloved films, and then there's the lesser known type stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
Awesome.
I've heard about it. Nothing too crazy, so I guess that's why I am excited. My expectations aren't through the roof or anything,
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome.
That'll be really cool.
If you guys don't want to be spoiled for Ponyo, 2008 film directed by Hayao Miyazaki, make sure you guys watch it before the next episode comes out.
That was, I guess, episode 8. We're taking steps. We're getting there. I guess small announcement. If everything works well, after next episode, we will have on our first guest, and it's going to be big. It's going to be cool.
I'm excited.
This guest has recommended us something that is going to be different than what we've covered. So get ready for a super in-depth discussion. Also, this guest is very articulate in the way that they talk. So already I'm super excited to have him on a podcast, because I feel like we're just going to experience a whole wealth of knowledge and things that me and Wallied can't provide, and a perspective that is really unique. So get ready for our first guest. If everything goes right, we'll have that episode up by the end of the month, and it's going to be awesome. hopefully everything works good. Hopefully things go according to plan. And then, well, like I said, once we have on that first guest, it's going to open the door to a bunch more and more changes in the future. Again, I hope by the year is out, we can get cameras and we can do this podcast visually as well. Because I do know right now, we just have the simple graphics up when you guys are listening to this. But I would like to show what we look like and show everything. Eventually, that's where I want to get it to. But yeah, I haven't worked on my acne problem too much. So once that's under control, we will be getting cameras and we will be doing everything visually. But yeah, thank you guys for viewing our videos, listening. Really hope you guys are enjoying everything that we talk about. And most importantly of all, I hope you guys are checking out new movies that, you may not have seen, and, you kind of have your guard up against certain things. There's a lot more beyond our limited viewpoint that we create for ourselves. So do yourselves a favor and take a step outside of that once in a while. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for listening so much. It means a lot to us. Good day and good night, mates.
Later.